All right, everybody. So we're going to take a look at using our sheets here to create nice graphs that you can use for IEPs to track and do your progress monitoring. So what I've created here is just a regular sheet, and I've titled it 2020, 2021 caseload. You can title this however you like. If you wanted it to be a specific person, maybe you can make each sheet be a specific person, and then create a folder for the 2021-2022 school year. That's up to you. That's however you would like it. But I'll name this for myself here. Okay. So all I did was put in some fictitious dates and some scores. Now, looking at comprehension accuracy, this could be for what you're looking for. You can change this banner up top here to whatever you want it to be. In the schools that I've worked in, there'd be some aides that were collecting some of the data, different teacher collecting some of the data. Maybe it was a classroom. If you need to know, or if you'd like to know who is collecting the data that day, you could put a column here for teacher. You don't have to. Okay, that's totally up to you. You could create a column here for notes if you really wanted to, or just any kind of observations that you had while you were reading with the student. That might just be anecdotal notes for yourself for when you're holding the IEP meeting. You can say, just came back from a long weekend, or this was the first cold read that he's had since after winter break. If that's important to you, then you have a spot. You can put it in there and you have the data there. But the meat and bones of this really is how do we create a graph, all right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to left click in A2, and while I'm holding left click the whole time, I'm going to drag over to B2, and then I'm going to drag all the way down to A15 and B15. I'm capturing that data, all right? So I'm going to hold down left click, bring it over, and then bring it down. I'm capturing this data here, okay? A couple different ways you can move from here. And one thing I will say, and I forgot to say this in the very beginning here, is your data has to be numerical, all right? So if you're using like on a rubric, then you're going to want to convert the rubric into something that's numerical. I'm using percentage here, okay, and I'm keeping the percentage here all the way down the line. If you're doing like your rubric is 3 out of 5 trials, then if you put a 3 out of 5 here, it will automatically convert that into a percentage because it's a fraction. Oops. But you need to be consistent all the way through. Okay. So I suggest using a percentage. I think it makes it the easiest. Okay. All right. So let's capture that again. We'll capture the data. All right. A couple different ways you can do this. You could right click to create graph. Okay. You could also go to insert, and we're going to go to chart. About halfway down, we're going to chart here. All right. So once I hit that chart, it just pops itself up. Okay. And you'll notice on the y-axis here, it has 0 to 100%. That's the percentages of the comprehension accuracy. It already wrote it for me on the y-axis here. So our math teachers will be very happy that we're labeling our axes. We've titled it. And we also have our date running across the bottom here. Okay. So within one click, you have your data. Okay. Now, one thing that I know people are going to want to look for and look at is the trend line. All right. So the way we can do that is with our trend line, we can go to customize because we're going to customize this. We want to kind of make it a little bit more to our needs. And then when we come down, we're going to come down to series. Okay. Now on the series line, if you really want to get fancy, you can change the line color. You can change how opaque that line color is. You can change the dash lines on your graph here. You can get rid of them. I think Google does a pretty good job of seeing this data and finding a nice contrasting. If you really want to get fancy with it, then you certainly can. All right. What I'm going to do now, though, is I'm going to go to trend line. See trend line right here. Now, your data, Google will kind of try and figure out, the analog figures out if the data you have is worthy of a trend line. All right. And since we have kind of longitudinal data here, It's seeing, okay, yeah, a trend line would work. Okay. So if you don't see the trend line here, I would change your data up a little bit. But if you set your data up just with the date and then whatever you're assessing for that date, and then I think it'll be good to go. So when I hit trend line here, it puts my trend line. Now I can change that color if I want. I can change the opacity. I can change the thickness of it. So if I want this maybe to be red, then it really stands out. That kind of looks a little bit better, I think. All right, so we can see the student's doing pretty well, trending in the right direction. Okay, another thing that teachers you may want to have, because when I look at this graph, I mean, I kind of see where it is, but I have to do a little bit of calculating to see where exactly this is between 50 and 75. So if you want those numbers there, right, I can show you how to do that. So a couple different ways I can do this. I think the easiest way is I'm going to click on the graph, and this is my options. Okay, and then I'm going to edit the chart. All right, and it just brings me back to this chart editor. Okay, you may have seen it before, but it's actually right next to the trend line piece. So if you can find the trend line, you can do this at the same time. So I go to customize, come down to series, and when I scroll down, I'll see data labels. So it's going to label for me all of those data points. Okay, so this might be better for you, right? You'll see that this spot here was actually a 60%, whereas this point here was actually a 72%. And you have a couple options with that. Come down here, you can have type. Well, it's the value. We want to know what that number was. Okay, it has the font that it's in. It has the text color. Well, there really is no text because we're just using the numbers there, so that's coming through as blue. Okay. So, I mean, you have some of this, but you know, the font size, it's auto. So I think it does a pretty good job of making it look a nice, clean visual representation of what you're trying to look out for, what you're trying to watch for. Okay. Now, from here, you have this. You have this ready to go. You can screenshot it. So if everybody has kind of a different computer, but if you're on a Mac, it's a Shift Command 4, right? And then I'm able to take a picture. I'll just grab this here. And I've taken a picture. Now it's going to live on my background of my computer here. So hopefully I can then push that into IEP Writer. You can copy the chart. You can publish your chart. Copying the chart just like a copy and paste. So if you're doing maybe a presentation and you're using a slides presentation, this would copy in very, very nicely. All right. So you can move it to its own sheet. Okay. So if I move it to its own sheet, then it'll show up. I'm going to move this guy down here. Oh, it's on there. You have your extra sheets that live on the bottom down here. I can't do it because I have my tool. Actually, I can click this in. So I can move it to a new sheet here. So if I had another student, I could be putting her data here. I could have just for sheets, where I could have all of my graphs on one side. I'm not exactly sure why you'd want to do that, but you can. You could move it to its own sheet if you really wanted to. Okay, so that's kind of the nuts and bolts of creating your graph here for data collection. If you have any troubles, let me know, and I'd be more than happy to help you out. See ya.